Shalom, shalom. This is Yosef, Mikael Yasharel. I'm just here recording right now with my brother, Divine, behind the camera. I'm just here to basically talk to you today and just a comparison of the commandments. I know it's a touchy issue, it's a bit of a shift in topic, but one of the things I want to go ahead and just kind of like put at ease and put at rest is the comparison of the Old and the New Testament. What I mean specifically is when you go to the Old Testament, you will find in Exodus chapter 20, verses 3 through 17. That is what we have is the foundational commandments, the 10 commandments, the ones that, Moses, when he came down from Mount Sinai. But if you will understand from the Old to the New Testament, they are still the same commandments, and they are actually still present to this very day. And I'm here to go ahead and give you that example in the breakdown. So bear with me for just a second. I'll go ahead and give that to you now. If you are watching this video and you have a pen and a paper, please feel free to take notes. I will be going over these very specific details. And as I mentioned earlier, as the foundational commandments in Exodus chapter 20, 3 through 17, you will find the establishment of the 10 commandments. How do they relate to the Old Testament, and are they done away with? No, they're not done away with. They're actually still relevant to this very day, in this current day and age, I believe 2025. So they're still foundational. So, for example, if you go to Matthew chapter 22, 36 through 40, the king himself speaks of keeping the commandments, but he says it in a different context. He says the first one is to love your Elohim with all your heart, soul, and mind. Well, if that's the case, that would be the first 5 commandments. The first commandment is to have no other Elohims before Yah, our Elohim. The second is don't make unto thee any graven images. The third is to not take his name in vain. And the fourth is to remember the Shabbat and to keep it holy. And the 5th commandment is honor your father and your mother so that your days may be long upon the land, right? Well, if the king, Yahuah, is saying, love your Elohim with all your heart, with all your soul, with all yourself, that establishes the very first 5 commandments. If you don't believe me, like I said, please, by all means, go look it up for yourself. I would happily say that you should definitely read it for yourself, get insight. So that's why I'm telling you these scriptures. The second portion, Yahuah, the king, or as many may call him today as Jesus, but his true name is Yahushua, a Mashiach. The second thing is to love thy neighbor as yourself. Now, if I'm correct, that would be the second half of the first 10 commandments. That would be the second half, which means 1, thou shalt not kill, right? We know that. And then thou shalt not break wedlock, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness, and thou shalt not covet after thy neighbor's possessions. So if you go back to Exodus, which is the first half of the 10 commandments, the first 5, the first 5, that's specifically talking about your Elohim, our relationship to Yah, to love him with everything that we have. And the second portion is to simply just love our neighbor and treat our brothers and sisters as we would want to be treated. So if any of this makes sense, you can simply break it down to a household. In fact, I actually wrote the example. A simple way to understand this is by looking at a household. Just as children live under the authority of their parents and are expected to follow the house rules, we live under the authority of our Heavenly Father, which is true. We show love and respect to our parents even when they discipline us, just as we should still love our siblings. Even when they test our patience and behave wrongly, these commandments teach us to walk in righteousness, not just for physical or material gain, but for the spiritual or moral blessings that align us with the will of Yah. And as we dive deeper into it, the most I can definitely tell you is when you do the small comparisons, when you do the Exodus to the Matthews, Yahushua, or like I said, many of you may call him as Jesus, but Yahushua is simply saying 2 things. Keep the commandments. John chapter 14, I believe, verse 15, if I'm correct. If you love me, guard my commandments. He's telling you to keep the commandments of old. which because they are not done away with. They're still foundational to this very day. And like I said, if you're listening to this, please take a pen, a piece of paper. Feel free to write down these verses: Matthew chapter 22, 36 through 40, and Exodus chapter 23 through 17. That being said, shalom.